Number 10. George Washington didn't actually have wooden teeth. He did have dentures, however. In fact, by the time he entered the White House, he only had a single natural tooth. Washington's dentures were comprised of ivory, lead, and animal teeth. Wooden teeth weren't unheard of, but the wealthy had access to better options. Despite his status and reputation, he was still very self-conscious about how his appearance and speech were affected by the dentures. Number 9. Washington is one of only 2 presidents not to be part of a political party, the only other being John Tyler. In Tyler's case, he'd been expelled by his own party, whereas Washington was fundamentally opposed to joining one. He thought it could only divide the nation, and even warned of this in his farewell address. In his final 3 years after leaving office, he was dismayed over the state of politics, which had already turned to a 2-party system. Number 8. Despite his opposition to political parties, Washington is generally considered a Federalist in all but name. During the War for Independence, he'd struggled to get even basic provisions for his troops, as the government was too weak to get states to adequately and consistently support the war effort. This convinced him that a stronger central government was needed. Almost everyone on his presidential cabinet was a Federalist. Number 7. After the Revolutionary War, all eyes were on Washington, as many questioned whether he'd actually relinquish his power. Many believed he'd set himself up as king, and some even urged him to do so. Committed to his values, he resigned his commission and returned to civilian life. He eventually ran for the presidency, but only at the behest of others who believed he was needed as a unifying figure. Number 6. George Washington hated swear words. A military order from Washington against profanity called it a vice so mean and low, without any temptation, that every man of sense and character detests and despises it. Ever since his youth, he'd been taught it was informal and impolite, and despite his savage temper, he learned to control his own language. This made it all the more shocking when he did swear. Furious at the retreat of one of his generals, Washington reportedly swore, quote, "till the leaves shook on the trees." Number 5. At about 6 foot 2 inches, George Washington is the 9th tallest president. Not only tall, but also very strong, he had a commanding presence among his fellow man, who on average was 5 foot 8 inches. Some historians claim Washington was as tall as 6 foot 4 inches, though Washington himself actually estimated down, claiming to be exactly 6 feet. Number 4. Washington's second inaugural address was the shortest in the nation's history, at only 135 words. By comparison, the average inaugural address is 2,340 words, and the second shortest, given by Franklin Roosevelt for his 4th term, was 559. Washington's second address simply addressed his duties as president and the consequences of violating them. Number 3. Even as the most popular man in America, Washington couldn't avoid making enemies during his presidency. James Madison had been one of his sincerest friends and even something of a surrogate son. By the end of his 2 terms, politics had torn them apart. Despite being 2 of the most fundamental figures in the nation's history, the 2 never reconciled. Number 2. The details of Washington's religious beliefs are still debated. The fact that he almost never publicly mentioned Jesus Christ, didn't partake in communion, and didn't even have a minister at his deathbed led many to believe he was a deist. However, a close friend described him as a devout and sincere Christian, and one of his pastors even called him an unusually helpful parishioner. Regardless of his personal beliefs, he saw religion as crucial to a successful republic. Number 1. By only serving 2 terms, Washington established the 2-term tradition, but it was actually Thomas Jefferson who stressed its importance. When Washington refused to run for a 3rd term, it wasn't so much about principle. Washington had never wanted to be president in the first place. By the end of his 2nd term, he just wanted to return to his home and do what he wanted to do for his whole life, be a farmer. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and donating on Patreon. Donations from $2 to $15 a month help towards more frequent uploads. Patreon link in the description below.